Hi, friends, and welcome back to Homeschool to College, where I help homeschooling moms of high schoolers confidently guide their teens through the college admissions process. If you're a mom currently navigating this process, you've probably asked yourself, does my teen really need to take the SAT or ACT anymore? And what about this new CLT test I keep hearing about? Standardized testing has changed a lot in the last few years, and it can feel overwhelming to figure out what matters for homeschoolers. In this video, I'll break down the SAT, the ACT, the newer CLT, and what test optional really means for your family so you can make an informed choice for your students' college applications. There's a lot we'll dissect today, but let's start with the big picture. Even though more schools have gone test optional, standardized tests can still benefit your student in several ways. For one, they can strengthen your teen's application if their homeschool transcript feels harder for colleges to compare. In the last video, we talked specifically about the homeschool transcript, and one of the things I mentioned was that it would not only be used to help paint a picture of your student, it would also be used to compare your student to other applicants. Admissions officers, especially at state schools, know their assigned public and private schools inside and out. They are aware of the school's rigor, available coursework, and the caliber of student. But each and every homeschool is different and unfamiliar. They have nothing to compare it to. So having a strong test score can normalize your student's transcript and show admissions committees that those grades were not a fluke, but were earned. Test scores can also unlock merit-based scholarships. For instance, here in Florida, students are required to take and achieve a specific score on either the SAT, ACT, or the CLT in order to earn the Florida Bright Future Scholarship, which pays up to 100% tuition at our public universities. This is a scholarship that homeschoolers qualify for and is a lot of money to leave on the table for those unwilling to take a standardized admissions test. Test scores can also serve as a benchmark for your students' readiness for college-level coursework. While there is no single data point that will get your teen admitted, each component of the application provides a different type of information. Just like the LSAT or the MCAT, standardized tests for undergraduate admissions can be an indicator of how ready your student is for college-level coursework. Can they exercise critical thinking and analytical skills? Do they understand the conventions of the English language? But this information is not only for admissions officers. It could be useful information for you and your student as well. Lower test scores, specifically if the student took the test without the help of prep materials, can indicate some areas for growth, things your teen may want to hone in on before their first day of college. So while the role of testing has shifted, it's far from irrelevant, especially for homeschool families. Now that we've discussed the why, let's dive into the what of each individual test, beginning with the SAT. This is not the Stanford Achievement Test we took in elementary school, but the college entrance exam many high schoolers prefer. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best option for your teen. Some variation of the SAT has been around since the 1920s. It is one in a suite of tests administered by a college board. The PSAT, National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, and the SAT are all similar tests that serve different purposes. But today, we're only talking about the SAT. This test is different from the one we took when we were applying to college. As of March 2024, it's completely digital and shorter than it used to be. It measures reading and writing skills and math through pre-calculus. While most high schoolers now take the test during their school day, homeschoolers will need to register for a weekend administration. The weekend tests are offered 8 times throughout the year during the fall and spring seasons. Scores on this test range from 400 to 1600, so your student can earn a score of up to 800 points on the math section and 800 points on the reading and writing section. Because the test is now completely digital, most scores are released 2 to 4 weeks after the administration, meaning your team won't have to wait as long as we did to find out how they performed. Colleges across the U.S. and even internationally are used to seeing SAT scores. For homeschoolers, a solid SAT score can help add credibility to their transcript. I go into detail about how to prepare strategically and choose the right prep timeline in my course, but for now, just know the SAT is still a trusted mainstream option. Now let's talk about the ACT. This test is also widely accepted and, for many students, a better fit than some of the other tests. The ACT covers English, math, and reading, and there are two optional portions, the essay and science. Science used to be a standard section of the test, but more and more schools are not requiring it, and there are some schools that won't even consider these scores. This does not mean that you should forego the science portion, though, because it may be required for some merit-based aid, i.e. Florida's a Bright Future Scholarship. Regarding the format of the ACT, this one has also been recently revamped. The rollout of the new enhancements began with the April 2025 administration and will be finalized in spring 2026. These changes include fewer test questions, more time per question, and shorter reading passages. This leads to a better overall testing experience, particularly for those students who struggle with test anxiety or time management issues. Now, what about the CLT? How does that test fit into the conversation? If you've never heard of the CLT, you are not alone. While the ACT and SAT have been around for decades, the CLT, or Classical Learning Test, is fairly new. It was established in 2015 as an alternative to the other admissions exams. Currently, the CLT is a 2-hour test that is taken online either in school or remotely. It has 3 sections: verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and grammar and writing. This test is great for those homeschool families who have taken a classical approach to education. It emphasizes reasoning and math, as well as reading passages from classical and historical texts. One drawback to the CLT is that not all colleges accept it as an admissions test. Currently, over 300 colleges accept the test for admissions, but the list is growing. Most of these schools accepting the CLT are Christian and liberal arts schools, as well as all of the public universities in Florida. So if your student is targeting one of these schools, this test might be the way to go. Now let's tackle the buzzword of the bunch: test optional. Test optional means students are not required to submit the SAT, ACT, or CLT scores, but they can if they want to. It means that if a student wants their test scores to be considered as a part of the application process, it can be. On the other hand, if they don't want it to be considered, it won't. For homeschoolers, this has pros and cons. One pro is that if your student struggles with testing but has a strong transcript, they can apply without scores. One of the things we talked about in a previous video is that your child is so much more than grades and test scores, and colleges know that. In fact, colleges want to see more. They want to see how your teen will contribute to their new environment. So removing test scores from the equation can make it easier for the school to see who your teen is as a whole person. On the other hand, without test scores to lean on, homeschool applicants sometimes need stronger essays, recommendation letters, or dual enrollment credits to show readiness. In the previous transcript video, we discussed that admissions committees sometimes have a hard time comparing the homeschool curriculum to a traditional school's curriculum because every single homeschool is different. College entrance exams give them a data point that they can use to compare your student to other applicants. And as much as you may not like it, yes, your kid is going to be compared to others. Right. Just a note, some schools are even test blind, which means they don't look at test scores at all, but that's less common. So how do you decide which test, if any, your teen should take? I want you to ask and answer these 3 questions. Question number 1, what schools are on your students' list and what are their policies? In my opinion, this is the most important question because if a school that your student is considering requires a test or even a specific test, that's important to know. Regardless of your views on standardized testing, applying to a school that requires one means your student will need to submit a score. Question number 2, does your student excel at standardized testing, or do they shine more in coursework and projects? Not everyone is a good test taker. For some of us, no matter how much we study, or even if we hire the best tutor, our test scores will never be a reflection of what we have actually learned. If that's the case for your student, the best idea may be to allow them to shine through their transcript, personal statement, letters of recommendation, and other pieces of the application. Question number 3, are you looking for scholarships that may require scores? If the answer is yes, your student should most definitely take an admissions exam. As I mentioned before, Florida's Bright Future Scholarship will pay up to 100% of a Florida student's tuition, but they will need to meet certain requirements, including a minimum score on either the CLT, ACT, or SAT. That's money that you do not want to leave on the table. There's no one-size-fits-all answer, but testing remains an important tool, especially for homeschool families who want to show colleges measurable results. When deciding on which test to take, my recommendation would be to have your student take the pre's. Results on the pre-ACT and pre-SAT will give you a good indication of how your student will perform on those actual tests. In fact, each score report will give you a predicted ACT or SAT score. These pre's are not a consideration in college admissions, and colleges will not see the results. If your student performs significantly better on one test versus the other, he or she may want to focus their preparation efforts on that exam. For example, my daughter scored much higher on the ACT than the SAT after taking both tests cold. She also felt more comfortable with the ACT, so that's what she chose to focus on. Something else to consider is that your student is not required to send all of their scores to their school of choice. When registering for the test, you can decide which schools receive score reports for that particular administration. You can also choose to not send any score reports at all. So if your teen doesn't do well, it's okay. No one will see the score. But if your teen does perform well, you can then decide to send that score report. It will cost you some more money. Currently, it's $15 per score report for the SAT and $20 for the ACT, but at least you'll know the results before sending them off. Remember, testing is just one piece of the application. In my next video, we'll talk about how to choose extracurriculars and activities that really matter in admissions. You'll learn how to show colleges the full picture of your student beyond transcripts and test scores. So make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss it. Before you go, don't forget that I've created some free resources to make this process easier. The Homeschool to College roadmaps are yearly checklists for both parents and students from middle school through senior year. Then we've got my comprehensive list of the 100 books all students should read before graduating from high school. And if your student is a junior, join the waitlist for my upcoming course designed just for parents of 11th graders. You can grab the links for all of those resources in the description box. And please remember, you're doing an amazing job as a homeschooling mom. Even though it can be overwhelming and time-consuming, just know that it is worth it. I'll see you in the next video.